Let's go ahead and begin. So today we're here to give a demo of two different visualization plugins that are available on Preset and tell you a little bit about the story behind them and what comes next, of course. So if you want to go ahead and dive in, we'll do some quick intros. My name is Evan Rusakis. I'm a Superset committer and PMC member, and I just work in developer relations, developer advocacy, and all that good community stuff at Preset. Julianne.
Thanks, Evan. Yeah, I'm Julianne. I'm the head of customer success. I've been enjoying demoing our table and interactive pivot table to our enterprise customers so far. So excited to share it with all of you guys today. Sophie.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophie. I'm a product manager at Preset. Excited to share more about the interactive table and interactive pivot table today, and I'll be here to answer any questions that come up.
And then this is just a little overview of what we're getting into. We want to talk about some of the underlying technologies of these new visualizations we've built, how we landed on them, why we got here, and where this whole project's coming from. Then we're going to go ahead and do two demos, one of each of the new visualizations, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's next or what could be next, depending on how people get involved and everything. And of course, we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A, since I'm sure there will be some. So the backstory here. So we've had a mess of different types of tables in Superset over the years. A couple of them have been revamped multiple times, but where we've been lately is that we have the table visualization, the default data viz. It was built with React table, and as many of you have noted on GitHub issues, the features are limited. It's not absolutely perfect and bulletproof. It doesn't do everything you want a table to do. So of course we had to figure out a way to make Superset and Preset, best in class BI and bring all these new features to the fold. The pivot table has probably even more GitHub issues and has had a lot of limitations. It's basically just a vanilla HTML table that's got a bunch of process data we put into it. It does some HTML rendering and things like that. But people have been expecting a lot more of a pivot table for a long time. And then, of course, there's other tables everywhere in Superset. The main one people refer to is the SQL Lab results table, because when you're writing queries, that's where you're going to see things for the first time and verify that your query is working. So that the interactivity of that table has also been important, and that's always been a generic table as well. So we went on a big hunt. Several of us at Preset and several folks at other organizations and individuals as well have gone around and scoured the internet for every sort of table or grid plugin we could find. And we did big audits on all of them. There were a lot of Notion and Google Doc kind of things comparing all the features of all of them, the capabilities, the extensibility, how you can build on these things. And of course, the licensing is very important, especially in open source. So we landed on AG Grid, which has two different options to it. There's a community edition, which is free to use. And then there's an enterprise edition, which gives you more bells and whistles as long as you pay up. But in general, these products are very extendable, as you can see in the little screenshot from their website, which I recommend you look at. You can build all kinds of custom cell renderers and do all sorts of fancy stuff with this as you learn to expand its capabilities. It's a leading product. There's a huge community around this, so we don't expect it's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. So where this AG Grid thing is at right now is very limited, but it is officially in the code base. The first thing that has made it in is what you see here in the GIF, or GIF if you prefer. But as part of Superset 5.0, we've got AG Grid Community Edition built into the SQL Lab results pane. So finally you can rearrange and sort and pin and do all these things with your various columns, which is great. So that helps you dive through your results and validate your SQL queries better. And this also unlocks more integrations of this within the Superset code base, because now that component is built in. So it's simply a matter of propagating it throughout the code base and using it all over the place wherever you see tables. So yeah, this is one contribution that was merged quite recently. after 5.0, and we expect this will be part of Superset 6.0. For those that are keeping track of releases, we are in the breaking change window on the repo right now, meaning people are merging a bunch of stuff and we're getting ready to cut the 6.0 release. You probably heard that we just released 5.0, but 6.0 comes with some cool stuff that we're going to talk a little bit more about at the end, probably. This open source AG grid table visualization that's built in does not have the enterprise version, so it doesn't have those features that are enumerated here. I'm not going to read the bullets for you, but the open source version is coming soon, so you will have that in upcoming releases, and we expect it's going to be on preset first, as it happens with most things. The pivot table, however, that we're also going to demo today is going to remain a preset only feature for a number of reasons, including licensing ones. But if you want to try this out in the meantime, if you're running on Superset Master off of the repo, you can just flip on those 2 feature flags that are enumerated there and take it for a test spin. We'd love to hear your feedback. And then, yeah, here's where we get into the meat and potatoes, probably what you're here for today. So we'll start off with the next slide, which is the interactive tables.
Great. Thanks for handing off, Evan, and thanks for the great background on how we got to AG Grid and how we're starting to integrate it into preset and across the board. For the interactive table, we already mentioned a couple of the cool features that are available here. Just to highlight a couple of the big things that are going to be obvious when we go into our actual demo in the product is some advanced filtering, really flexible aggregations that you can change on the fly, seamless data transfer, being able to download your data outside of preset or superset, and then also enterprise performance. So making sure that we're optimized to smoothly handle large data sets, and then making sure that we display those large data sets with sophisticated server-side pagination. And overall, some really easy column adjustments, which we'll see better in our actual demo. So we'll jump into the actual presentation of this right here. So I'm on a demo dashboard here that's just using the example data set. I think it's either called sales data set or vehicle sales if you're in preset. And our table here is going to be our new interactive pivot, or sorry, our interactive table as it's noted within preset. We have quite a few features that are still really comparable to our existing table, which you can see below here, where we have that ability to do our summary at the bottom here with our totals. We have our time shift comparison at the table level, which you can see here as well for my 2 metrics here. As well as we have our cell bars and so that conditional formatting that we already had available in our existing table brought into the AG Grid / interactive table. With those new features, we have quite a few. One of the ones I'm excited about is while we had sorting with our previous table, with the new table, you have the ability to sort multiple columns. So here, if I click into my first column here, I can sort by my current value. And if I hit Shift on my keyboard, I can then have a secondary sort and so on. So if I sorted by product line, and then I wanted to sort within that by my secondary metric here, I can do that. And I can keep doing that basically across the board for each of my columns or metrics. Pretty exciting stuff. The best thing about this is while there's a lot of interactions that we're doing across the board, I can always reset things very quickly and easily by either going to the 3 dots or right clicking and then going to reset columns. And we're back where we started. In addition to sorting, you also have the ability to rearrange our columns just by dragging and bringing them wherever you would like them to be. For example, if I wanted to bring my product line over here, I could certainly do that. Or if I say wanted to expand out my chart, really get nitty gritty, and now I have a scroll bar, I could now freeze my first column here, pin column to the left or to the right, as we saw. And now I can bring those title columns with me as I scroll. In addition to that, maybe while I'm analyzing my data, I don't just want to look at my current value, the previous value. I can go into my 3-dot menu here and have the ability to either choose a new value aggregate, which we can see here. We can do the sorting rather than clicking through the 3-dot menu as well. This is where I got to that pin column section as well. And we can also auto size or resize our columns automatically through here. At the bottom here, which is what I was going to jump into, is our choosing columns. So if I didn't want to see all of the visible columns, I can go in here and say I actually only want to see my current value and the delta from my previous period. And I can go and choose those columns. We can see it's actually updating behind the scenes. We see this here. So that's the ability to choose which columns are available. We already looked at pinning columns. And if I wanted to, again, reset those columns, I can bring all of those columns back quickly and easily. What I find most exciting is the ability to do our more advanced filtering. We can see that each of our columns contains a filter icon. So rather than doing a more general search, which we had in our previous table, you can now do a very granular search at the individual column. So if we click in here, we can see for this numeric type column, we have an equals. We could do even more advanced things than you can, say, with our dashboard filters by using equals, greater than, less than, between, equal does not equal. So say I'm just going to put an example here for this value, just for greater than 100,000. And we can see, or let me clear this just so you can see this actually update. We can see that as I type this in, it's able to, we're having that quick reactive filter application. We can then see that I can also choose an additional filter on top of that. If I wanted to and or it with another filter, I have that ability as well. So I could do greater than 10,000, but less than another value, or I could just do between, either way. And then in addition to that, we do also have 4 text type columns. You have the ability to either select our specific values here, or do like a contains, does not contain, begins with, ends with, etc. Much more advanced filters and things I know that people have been interested in for a long time. After we've gone through and taken a look at our table and modified it to be exactly how we would like it to be, we would likely want to export this maybe and share it with either a teammate or analyze it somewhere else. With our previous table, we'll see when I highlight here, it's not a very clean highlight. If I copy this value and I paste it, it's not very clean, it's not very consistent. But with our new interactive table, if I highlight my section here, I can right click and we can see that it's highlighting the full cells, and we have the ability to copy or copy with headers, making sure we're maintaining that context here. We can see it's a much cleaner copy and paste. In addition to our copy and paste, we also have the ability to do export. I think the one exciting one here that has also been asked for a long time is export to Excel, where we maintain the formatting of the headers here. So with our new Excel export with this new interactive table, it's looking really clean, really excellent. The last thing I'm going to talk about with the existing table is how do I update my previous tables into our new interactive tables. And so I'm going to go into my existing table chart here. And I can quickly and easily, at least in preset, our quick switcher has changed so that the top value table is going to be that interactive table. So you can quickly switch over to that value. It will maintain all of our settings here. And I can just click update chart. And I get all of the power of our interactive table all at once. You can also see that auto sizing all columns in action here as well. All right. And that's going to finish up my demo of the interactive table.
I see some questions coming into the webinar chat. We can answer them here for now, but for any future questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A just so it's easier to see the question and the respective answer there. A few questions that have come in so far. Can the columns be resized in the interactive table? Yes, you can do the resizing by column, or you can do, it does have like the auto resize that Julian did show. Yep. There was a question about if there's a date column, will there be a between clause? And yeah, so I don't think we have a date in our, oh, there you go, you have a date in your example, but there is equal, before, after, and then you can put in the date that you want to do before and after. There was a question about whether these are available in the embedded views. Yes, they are.
As far as availability of that, we should mention that this particular visualization is preset only. There is the open source community edition AG grid table that's coming to open source Superset, but it does have some distinct differences. You can't do multiple filters. You can't export to Excel. You can't, export CSV with headers to your clipboard. You can't do the selecting a range of cells feature. The version on preset has a lot more because it's using the Enterprise Edition under the hood. And that is available to all customers at all levels of preset.
All right, great. So diving into our interactive pivot table, you'll see a lot of the same interactions that we just took a look at between the individual column filtering, rearranging columns, pinning columns, auto size columns, with some additional useful ability to collapse and expand groups. We'll see those aggregation options in action. And I think it'll, again, just easier if we just jump right into our dashboard here. I'm gonna actually jump over to my second tab here, where we have a side-by-side of our previous pivot table and our current new interactive pivot table. The previous pivot table, I think, is a night and day from before and after. As I mentioned, it's very static, very flat. With our new pivot table, we'll have all of those interactions that are just a little bit clunkier with our previous pivot table. We still have many of the same features that you see, again, with those totals. We have those available at the bottom, any subtotals. We can see our conditional formatting here available. One key difference you'll notice right away is that we have our groups collapsed by default in our new pivot table versus expanded in our previous pivot table. This definitely makes things a lot easier to, allows you to both present a lot of data without making it overwhelming to users. A couple of other points to note before we dive into this. We have our new top bar here, where you can see our row and column groups, where you can also interact and change the hierarchy of these. So right now we can see within my rows here, we have our country. And if I expand this out, I have my individual product line below. I can swap this out, and maybe if I want my product line to be that higher hierarchy, I can then swap that out dynamically on the fly on the dashboard quickly and easily. Same thing with rows and columns. Sorry, same things with my columns. I can swap out my quarter for my year and swap it back just as quickly. I can drag and drop these between one and the other. So maybe instead of, let me bring that back. So if I wanted to bring my country over to the other side, I can always do that as well, and then expand that out by year. So we have all of this dynamic rearranging available on the dashboard. As you can see with these row groups, and again, when I expand them out, I can either individually expand them, or I can click on our three dots here and choose to expand all of my row groups to make it easy, and having that same default view as we saw earlier. And I've accidentally applied a cross filter, so you can see that cross filtering is still available in our new interactive pivot table as well. We, as you can see, have those expandable rows, as well as our expandable columns, which we saw earlier. Just want to pull that out separately so that we can really see that identified here. In addition, we can see that we have those individual filters available just as we had on our interactive table, with those equal, greater than, less than, between, blank is not blank type filters. And again, being able to and or those filters together. In addition to our changing our individual value aggregation, let me show how you can do that here. That's again going to be in that three-dot menu. And we can go down to value aggregation, and I can see that I can change it from the default, which is the sum, to the minimum, maximum, last, first, count, average, or no aggregation. So I'll swap that over to our max here, and we can see again, quick, easy, on the dashboard, all things we want to see. And again, we have that ability to reset all columns back to the way they were before as well. In addition, we have all of the ability to do that pinning columns that we saw earlier, auto sizing our columns, choosing those columns, again, if we want to remove some of those columns from our view, and that same export, so we can export to CSV export to Excel. And as mentioned, exporting here with our pivot will include those pivoted headers, which is the setup that we've been wanting to see. All right, overall, I think it's a great visualization and heard very positive reviews of it so far. Happy to jump it back over to you, Evan.
Okay. Well, thank you for the demos. Much appreciated. And there are lots of questions coming in. Sophie, do I want to take a question break and handle some of these that have been answered or might be open?
We can try to answer some of them. I think there's some specific questions about I think people are sharing a little bit about their specific use case or a little bit more detailed questions. Feel free to open an issue on GitHub if you have any bugs that you want to report, or if you have a question, you can put a discussion open a discussion thread in GitHub as well. If you're a preset customer and you're having some issues, you want to share a screenshot of your specific table, feel free to email us at support@preset.io.
Which will tell you how to get your hands on this thing toward the tail end of this presentation so you can try it yourself and answer some of these a little more.
Yeah.
So this is a blog I wanted to point out. If you haven't checked out preset.io/blog, there's all kinds of good stuff there, but this is one post about the nitty-gritty features of the interactive table. There will be a blog post coming soon about the interactive pivot table, but that right now is a beta feature, and we'll tell you how to get your hands on that beta. But it's very much in testing, and we're adding things to it still, quite possibly. So as the dust settles, I'm writing the blog, and we'll have that out soon. Okay, go ahead. And then this is how you get to it. So if you want to try the interactive table, that's available on the starter free plan, which is available for up to 5 people for free forever. So if you haven't tried preset, or even if you're just trialing Superset, this is probably the easiest way to try it. And if you get on Enterprise right now, that's how you would get your hands on the pivot table. It's in an Enterprise beta feature, so you can get an Enterprise trial account if you want one, or if you're already an Enterprise customer, you can reach out to support@preset.io and ask for that feature to be turned on so you can try it out. And we very much look forward to your feedback. And if you want to check out the pricing, there's a link to it right there via QR code. And if you want to contact sales about getting an Enterprise trial set up, then you can click the contact sales link at the top of our preset website or hit that QR code. So it's going to be in beta for a little while. In a few weeks, it'll be on Pro. But meanwhile, yeah, Enterprise is the way to go if you want it today. So then on our next slide, we go into what's next. And there's a whole future for AG Grid stuff. And 6.0 is coming up. If you're a preset customer, you don't really care about superset versions. We're always bringing the latest and greatest features in there, and it's a zero maintenance, transparent upgrade process. But for those of you on open source that are releasing the official ASF releases, 6.0 is going to be a big one. And it is built around theming primarily. And I should say now that both of these visualizations will support full theming. And when we talk about theming, this is not just the CSS templates of yesteryear, but actual proper theming that goes very deep into the UI, and you'll have a whole lot of flexibility. If anyone's interested in seeing how all of that works, it's a wildly different topic. I'll give you some links on the next slide. In the meanwhile, this is also an opportunity for those of you in open source to contribute stuff. We have that SQL Lab result set built as an AG grid table, but now that that component is available in the code base, there's a whole bunch of other places we can start leveraging it, and we're open to proposals and contributions. So when you drill to details, you see a table. When you open something in the data source editor, it's a table. Even the CRUD views of superset objects like charts and dashboards and all of that are essentially grid views. So you can kind of imagine a future for AG Grid to grow roots throughout the code base, and that'll simplify the code base for maintainers and improve functionality for users. So it's a win-win, and we're open to contributions there on open source grants. we go ahead and give a bunch of additional resources here, which I shall copy and paste the links for those of you in the chat. And what we have there is the theming webinar, which is coming up, where we'll go into how that works, what it looks like, what you can do with it when it's coming, all the theming questions that people have been asking for years. We hope it lives up to all your hopes and dreams. Then the Superset newsletter by Preset is a relatively new offering for those that want to stay on top of Superset news and Superset relevant preset news. You can sign up for that mailing list. And then, of course, we want to hear from you. So the best way you could do that is by joining Superset Slack for open source matters, and you can join our Superset Town Hall to get into discussions about how to use it, how to contribute it to it. And both those links are on the community page on the Superset website. And then our last slide is perhaps the most important to many of you, Q&A. So I'll turn the mic over to Sophie and we can go through some fun stuff here. And again, of course, if you want to ask questions about these preset proprietary features, then reach out to your support team at Preset.
Yeah, I think so. Some questions we can address. There's some questions about the export on the tables. The export does retain the column level filter. So if you do a filter and do an export, you can the export will have just your filtered view. You can always do, I think Julian mentioned the copy and paste and copy with headers is a pretty nice, gives you a pretty nice view of that as well. There was a question about exporting from multiple charts into a single Excel file. I don't believe we have support for that right now. There was some questions about the coloring and customization. We do have some custom conditional formatting that you can do on the tables. It'll be in the Customize tab of your Explorer. You can take a look at what is there. There's like a positive and negative view, and then some basic color schemes for like success, error, things like that are there. I think there was a question about more granular color formatting. We don't have support for that yet, but always open to contributions on Superset. Is there anything there? Let's see. There are a few questions about embedding as well. Julian, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the embedded view will change anything of this table view. You'll get the same table view, same functionality. So everything there should look pretty much the same. If you have any issues with that, feel free to open an issue on GitHub or contact support on the preset side if you're a preset customer. There's a question about dashboard and chart. Dashboards, we do have a PDF download as PDF view in addition to image. I don't think we have that on the chart level yet. The chart, we just have the image or Excel or CSV downloads. Yep, there we go. Export to PDF so that you can do that on a dashboard level. Let's see. Adjusting size of the there's a question about adjusting the size of the info in the table, like it's possible with big numbers. Oh, like the font size. We don't have that. I don't think we have that functionality yet on the table. Again, some of these things, if you have cool ideas, we're always open to contributions on the Superset side.
Maybe I'll jump in for a second there, because one of the questions was about formatting certain cells, like if it's a country name and you want to give it a certain color or font size, things like that. You can most likely, I would imagine, still do that with CSS. So these do render HTML in their cells. So you can, put a div in there and put a class name on it of the country and then write some custom CSS that leverages that. Or you can target a particular cell and change the font size or whatever you want with CSS, which is kind of a sidecar to the theming stuff we're going to be talking about. The theming is more general UI wide kind of theming. So if you want to have, your co-branded colors or dark mode or anything like that, we'll be able to handle that in the near future, but CSS will still be available for the nitty-gritty tweaking of things.
Oh, one more question that just came in, probably good for you, Evan. Is there any good guidance or tutorials for the custom CSS on Preset?
Why, yes, indeed. There's a couple of blog posts. Let me go ahead and find that little link for you right now. But there's a couple of blogs on Superset, a couple of Superset oriented blogs on the Preset blog site. And let me find the original one, which is I point to all the time. I'll stick that in the chat. And there's also a second part of it, which it links to at the bottom of the post. So there's all kinds of examples of tips and tricks and tactics to do common requests. And actually, I'm always looking to write more of these CSS-oriented blog posts. So if anybody has any particular use cases that aren't covered, just hit me up on Slack, or you can email me, evan@preset.io, and I'd be happy to work up a part 3 and continue to cover more examples and techniques.
There's a question about the time comparison on the interactive table. So Julian was showing the table with the time comparison view. If you are in the table view, there is in the time comparison section, there is a time comparison, so you can add a time range that you can want to compare to. That's how Julian has the delta and percent and number differences view there. So we do have support for that in our interactive table. There's a similar big number feature too for that time comparison. Will the pivot table retain its format when it's downloaded as Excel? So when you do download a pivot table in Excel, it will export it kind of like you see in preset. It doesn't export it as an Excel pivot table, but it does have the same formatting as the pivot table in preset or preset in this case. Does the table keep the changes the next time you open the table, or does it revert back? That's a good question. So if you are in the chart creation mode, if you're creating a table, you'll see kind of little notifications on the side telling you things will be saved. So things like the column sorting, what else? The column ordering. You see the little notification in the bottom corner. There will be things like that will be saved for your users. So when they view them on the dashboard, they'll get the same initial view that you set up here. If someone is viewing on the dashboard and you're making kind of changes within, reordering things, sorting things, that kind of stuff, that does not get saved between dashboard views. It kind of resets back to whatever the chart creator had set up originally. Julian, do you want to add anything there? Does that cover it?
Yeah, I think you covered it there.
Well, HTML formatting or edits be preserved in CSV or Excel exports. HTML formatting.
I think when you do that, it basically makes the contents of the cell an HTML tag. So I do believe that gets copied or exported accordingly, because you're essentially munging your data to be HTML. So what you do with that on the consumption end of that export may vary depending on where you stick it.
I think there's some specific questions about PDFs. If you're having trouble finding the feature, feel free to open up an issue on GitHub or reach out to support on the preset side. We can help you a little bit more in detail there, better than we can help you on the webinar. Again, for anyone that didn't get their question answered, feel free to reach out via GitHub or support.
Cool. And I feel like I forgot to do a couple of little shout outs on the open source side. Special thanks to Justin for contributing the aggregate component for SQL results and setting us up to do more stuff with that. And thank you to Aman for contributing the open source version of the aggregate table visualization. And if you want to get involved in open source, please do reach out on Slack, join us there. It's a whole big party. Yeah, and if you want to try it out, please sign up for a free account on Preset, and you can try the interactive table. And then if you want to try the pivot table, reach out to support and get that enterprise trial going and get the feature flag flipped on. All right, I think we got the bulk of the questions. So thank you all for attending, and be sure to sign up for the theming webinar/demo that will be coming up soon. And it sounds like there are some embedded questions that we need to tackle too. So we'll probably do another one of these about embedded and get to all of that stuff as well. So thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Julianne. And thank you everyone for joining. And we'll see you soon.